YouVersion App Amplified Bible Classic Edition AMPC Mark 9. And Jesus said to them, "Truly I solemnly say to you, there are some standing here who will not in no way taste death before they see the kingdom of God come in its power." 6 days after this, Jesus took him, Peter and James and John, and led them up to the high mountain apart from themselves, and he was transfigured before them and became resplendent and divine brightness, and his garments became glistening intensely white, and no fuller cloth dresser, launderer on earth could it bleach them. And Elijah appeared there to them, accompanied by Moses, and they were holding a protracted conversation with Jesus. And Peter took up the conversation, saying, "Master, it is good and suitable and beautiful for us to be here. Let us make 3 booths tents, one for you and one for Moses and one for Elijah." For he did not really know what to say, and they were in a violent fright, aghast with dread. And a cloud threw a shadow upon them, and the voice came out of the cloud saying, "This is my Son, the most dear, worthy, beloved one. Be constant listening to and obeying him." And looking around, they suddenly no longer saw anyone with them except Jesus only. And as they were coming back down from the mountain, he admonished and expressly ordered them to tell no one what they had seen until the Son of Man should rise from among the dead. So they carefully and faithfully kept the matter to themselves, questioning and disputing with one another about the rising and among the dead meant. And they asked him, "Why do the scribes say that it is necessary for Elijah to come first?" And he said to them, "Elijah, it is true, does come first to restore all things and set them to rights, and how it is written of the Son of Man, that he will suffer many things and utterly despised and treated with contempt and rejected. But I tell you that Elijah has already come, and people did to him whatever they desired, as it is written of him." And when they came to the 9 disciples, they saw a great crowd around them, and scribes questioning and disputing with them. And immediately all the crowd, when they saw Jesus returning from the Holy Mount, his face and person yet glistening, and they were greatly amazed and ran up to him and greeted him. And he asked them, "About what are you questioning and discussing with them?" And one of the throng replied to him, "Teacher, I brought my son to you, for he is a dumb spirit, and wherever it lays hold of him, so as to make him its own, it dashes him down and convulses him, and he foams at the mouth, and he grinds his teeth, and he falls into a motionless stupor and is wasting away. And I asked your disciples to drive it out, and they were not able to do it." And he answered them, "O unbelieving generation without any faith, how long shall I have to do with you? How long am I to bear with you? Bring him to me." So they brought the boy to him, and when the spirit saw him, at once it completely convulsed and the boy, and he fell to the ground and kept rolling about, foaming at the mouth. And Jesus asked the father, "How long has he had this?" And he answered, "From the time he was a little boy. And it has often thrown him both into fire and into water, intending to kill him. But if you can do anything, do have pity on us and keep us." And Jesus says, "You say to me, if you can do anything, why? All things are possible to him who believes." At once the father of the boy gave an eager, piercing, and articulate cry with tears. And he said, "Lord, I believe. Constantly help my weakness in faith." But when Jesus noticed the crowd of people came running together, he rebuked the unclean spirit, saying to it, "You dumb and deaf spirit, I charge you to come out of him and never go into him again." And after giving a hoarse, clamoring, fear-stricken shriek of anguish and convulsing him terribly, it came out, and the boy lay pale and motionless like a corpse, so that Many of them said, "He is dead." But Jesus took a strong grip of the hand and began lifting him up, and he stood. And when he had gone indoors, the disciples asked him privately, "Why could not we have driven it out?" And he replied to them, "This kind cannot be driven out by anything but prayer and fasting." They went on from there and passed along through Galilee, and he did not wish to have anyone know it, for he was engaged in the time being in teaching his disciples. He said to them, "The Son of Man is being delivered into the hands of men, and they will be put to death, and when he has been killed, after 3 days he will rise from death." After they did not comprehend what he was saying, and they were afraid to ask him what this statement meant. And they arrived in Capernaum, and when they were in the house, he asked them, "What were you discussing and arguing about the road?" But they kept still, for on the road they had discussed and disputed with another as to who was the greatest. And he sat down and called the 12 apostles, and he said to them, "If anyone desires first, he must be last of all and the servants of all." And he took a little child, and put him on the center of their group, and taking him in his arms, he said to them, "Whoever in my name and by my sake accepts and receives and welcomes one such child, also accepts and receives and welcomes me. And whoever so receives me receives not only me, but him who sent me." John said to him, "Teacher, we saw a man who does not follow along with us, driving out demons in your name. And we forbade him to do it because he is not one of our band of your disciples." And Jesus said, "Do not restrain or hinder or forbid him. For no one who does a mighty work in my name will soon afterward be able to speak evil of me. For he who is not against us is for us. For I tell you, truly, whoever gives up a cup of water to drink, because you belong to and bear the name of Christ, will by no means fail to get his reward. And whoever causes one of these little ones, these believers who acknowledge and cleave to me, and stumble and sin, it would be better, more profitable, and wholesome for him if a huge millstone were hung about his neck and were thrown in the sea. And if your hands put a stumbling block before you and causes you to sin, cut it off. It is more profitable and wholesome for you to go into life that is really worthwhile maimed than with 2 hands to go to hell, Gehenna, into the fire that cannot be put out. And if your foot is caught stumbling in sin to you, cut it off, and more profitable, wholesome for you to enter into life that is really worthwhile crippling than having 2 feet to cast into hell, Gehenna. And if your eye causes you to stumble in sin, pluck it out. It is more profitable and wholesome for you to enter the kingdom of God with 1 eye than 2 eyes to be thrown into hell, Gehenna, where their worm, which preys on the inhabitants and is a symbol of the wounds inflicted on a man himself, be his sins, does not die, and the fire is not put out. For everyone shall be salted with fire. Salt is good, beneficial. But if salt has lost its saltness, how will you restore the saltness to it? Have salt within yourself, and be at peace, and live in harmony with one another.